All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jillian, and I'm the founder of Sharks for Kids, and we're really excited to be back at the Bimini Sharklab for today's Shark Science Google Hangout. So we have an amazing team. We have some great classrooms joining us, and a very, very special guest we're going to introduce in just a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and let these guys introduce themselves. We'll meet our classrooms, and then we'll dive into our shark science.
Hi guys, I'm Jessie. I'm from London, England, and I'm a volunteer intern at the Bimini Biological Field Station.
Hello everybody, I hope you are all having a fantastic Friday. My name is Colin Davis. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I am the outreach coordinator at the station. So I try to take all the cool Sharky stuff that we learn and promote it through education to tours, research experiences, and the classrooms just like you guys. Thank you so much for joining.
All right, so now we're going to introduce our classrooms, and I see we've had one more join. Awesome. I see. Oh, all right, everybody's here. Great. All right, so I'm glad everyone made it. And I apologize if the internet's not great. We are on a tiny little island, so sometimes our internet's not the best, but we're gonna work with it. So I would like, when I introduce, if you guys want to unmute your microphone and just say hi to everybody and give a big welcome. Mrs. Martin's grade 1 at Starside Elementary in Kansas. You guys want to say hi? Hi. Hi. Thanks for joining us. All right, we have Mrs. Wisniewski's grade 6 in Ripon, Wisconsin.
Hi. Hello, guys.
Then we have Miss Overberg's grade 4 math class in Tennessee.
Hi. Hello. We're actually in Indiana.
I'm sorry. All right.
It's okay.
Right. And then we have a big group. We have Mrs. Hughes, Miss White, Miss Ransom, and Miss Moore's grade 1 students. All right, that's a great group. And then last but not least, we have Mrs. Willis's first grade students from Rose Hill Elementary.
Right.
Hi. Right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us and for everybody watching. So we're at the Bimini Sharklab, the Bimini Biological Field Station on the South Island of Bimini in the Bahamas. We're about 50 miles from the state of Florida. And this facility was built in 1990 by Doc Hoover. And since it was built, it's really been a leader in shark science. The main species has been lemon sharks that have been studied here, but they also study tiger sharks, bull sharks, hammerheads, and nurse sharks. And really amazing discoveries have been made right here. And you might have even seen this place on Shark Week. It's usually on every single year, and a lot of different documentaries have featured the incredible research that's been done here. So learning a little bit about behavior, personality, how some sharks actually give birth. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the equipment that's used and how scientists actually study sharks. So in order to study sharks, we have to ask questions, and then we try and answer them. And we have specific equipment that we use, places we go to answer those and learn about the animals. So our special guest today came from out back behind the lab. There's a pen, and if you think about a pasture with cows or horses in it, and there's a fenced-in area, the lab has a kind of a fence outside in the ocean. And there'll be juvenile nurse sharks and lemon sharks there. They spend about 30 days, and then they're released in the exact spot they were caught. And the reason they're there is so that volunteers that come to the lab to spend time and assist and learn about the animals can learn how to safely handle sharks. They're also available for the general public to come see and have a tour of the lab. So if you're ever in Bimini or you want to get some hands-on experience with science, you can actually visit the lab and come see some of these animals. So our special guest today is actually a nurse shark from the pen. All right. I'm gonna hold up and hope he doesn't splash the camera too much. All right, so this is our special guest friend. Now, you may notice it looks very different than other sharks you might have seen. I think we kind of think of great whites with that pointy nose and big triangular dorsal fin. This shark is very different. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is actually go through and see some of the anatomy, the special features that make this particular shark, the nurse shark, unique. So we're going to go through that. Then we're going to look specifically at some of the tags, so the way that we can identify the individual sharks, and then show you what's called a scientific workup. This is how we collect data or information from each individual animal we catch to use as a tool to better understand them. So we're going to go ahead and start looking at the anatomy up close at the nurse shark.
All right. Into the shark pen I go. Hello, everybody. Oh, shark says hi too. So our little nursey friend here, as we see, is a very, very different looking shark than I'm sure what most of us are accustomed to. So we notice first, hi. So what we notice first is it's a very flat looking shark, right? It doesn't have a lower tail fin. It's all of its fins adorning its body are large and rounded and definitely suit its life close to the bottom. So we know for sure that this shark is actually a little bit of thrashing. So we know that this shark is going to spend a lot of its time within the bottom meter or the bottom 3 feet of the ocean. So it is therefore benthic or bottom dwelling. And it's got a number of features along its body that aid in its ability to thrive at this depth and at this substrate. So we find these little sharks typically tucked away, nice and safe, secure under rocky coral ledges. That's where we find them at. It's a form of safety. It's a form of sanctuary. It really aids in their protection from predators, and a lot of their prey that they're going to eat are actually going to live in these same substrates. So let's look at some of the cool things that this shark has. I'm sure what you guys first saw on its face, it's got a really cool little mustache, right? So besides being super fashionable, it also offers another really super interesting attribute to this shark's eating behavior. It has little pores known as ampullae of the ampullae of Lorenzini that can detect little electrical synapses or pulses in their potential prey items. So if you could all just kind of put a hand on your heart and feel that little beat, even if you close your eyes and kind of hold your breath a bit, you still feel that beat. And that's what this little shark here can detect. And it has these little pores all along its snout here, but just on these barbels here as well, it has extra of these pores so that it can feel crustaceans such as crabs, lobster, conch, all these tasty crustaceans that this shark is going to munch down on. I'm going to give it a little bit of time in the water. Around, and we're back. So what else is cool to aid in that, to aid in their ability to eat these really tough-shelled or hard exoskeleton creatures, is it's got a very interesting jaw structure, mouth that it's evolved. It's a lot less like what you might expect from a great white shark or a tiger shark, and a lot more of what you would kind of see in a stingray species, perhaps. It's got 2 crushing plates, so they're 2 flat structures that grind together to get through tough exoskeletons of their potential prey items, and to help draw them in so that they can actually have them within their grasp, they can actually create a vacuum via suction feeding, which is a really neat feature to help bring them up out of the sand, into their mouths, into the crushing plates, and have a pretty tasty meal. Next, let's take a look at their eyes here along their side. We can see they're very small and placed high on the head. They don't need very big eyes because as they do live under these rocky structures, under coral ledges, there's not much light that they need to take in anyway. And if they had big eyes, that could potentially rub up against that really tough, scrapey surface. It definitely wouldn't help the shark. So they're very small. And you'll also notice they're white, which also indicates that they are nocturnal or more active at night to look for their prey. We see along their fins, they're large, rounded, very maneuverable. It helps them kind of skirt around under the coral ledges. We have our pectoral fins here on both sides that help the shark maneuver. They're very notably flexible in a nurse shark. We have their dorsal fins, the top 2 fins alongside the body here. We have their pelvic fins just here, an anal fin here, and their caudal fin, or their tail here, that actually does not have a lower lobe, because as it does spend so much time at the bottom, it doesn't need that extra fin. Another really cool thing. So I know a big source of wisdom that we're brought up on is that sharks always have to be moving forward to be able to breathe. But this little shark, knowing that it spends so much time stationary resting in its habitat, it can actually personally pump its gills there, an action known as buccal pumping. And it brings highly oxygenated water over its gills, so it doesn't always have to be maneuvering around to be able to bring in oxygen and breathe, which makes it an ideal candidate for our tour pen to introduce to our guests and to help educate so you can learn about these cool little sharks. Cool. I'm going to step on out. Let's talk about some tags.
All right. So all over the world, scientists use different equipment to answer questions, and it usually means giving each shark an individual tag. Think of it like a name tag, but you couldn't just put a sticker on a shark. So there's been developments from very basic tags all the way up to some really amazing technology. And as technology advances, think about phones and computers and cameras as they're changing. So are the tags that we're able to use to understand the movements, the behaviors, where do these sharks spend their time, and who are they hanging out with? So one of the tags that goes in every single shark here, no matter what kind is caught, is a pit tag. Oh, this is actually kind of cool. So this is the same thing your cat or dog might have at home. It's actually this little tiny dark thing you see right here, right? And it's a pit tag. So it would go between the shoulder blades of your cat or dog, and it would have information like your family's phone number, address. So if your animal gets lost, the Humane Society or a vet can actually scan this. And you can think of it like when you go to the grocery store or store and your item beeps over the register. On the back of things, there's those little black and white codes, those barcodes. This is a barcode for a shark. Right? So it goes inside, and we'll show you when we actually do the workup where it goes. It goes just under the dorsal fin, inside the skin, just like it is on your pet. So this is a very basic, easy way to give that animal essentially its own name or name tag. Again, really small, very basic. The next tag that we can use, so another tag that we can use that's very basic as well is called a Casey or a dart tag, or sometimes called a spaghetti tag. Right? You can see kind of here, I'll show you guys, there we go. It's very thin, it's like spaghetti, it's got a number on it. So when the shark is caught, all this information, the location, the size, whether it's male or female is written down. This goes just under the dorsal fin and trails along. It's very smooth. It doesn't change the way the animal swims. And if somebody catches the shark again, they'll scan it, or they might see this tag, and there's information of contact. You have contact like an email or a phone number. So say somebody different, a different scientist catches the shark, or even a fisherman, and they see this, they can actually let the scientists know where they caught the shark, maybe remeasure it and give them some information, which helps us gain a better understanding of things like how fast they grow or where they travel to. Now, tags are getting a bit fancier. If anyone has a Fitbit, all right, something you wear, that watch that counts your steps or the calories you're burning, how much exercise, there's Fitbit for sharks as well. So this is an accelerometer. What this does is every time the shark accelerates or moves, it actually can count kind of the tail beats, right? Think of your steps, how far you've traveled, how fast you're moving. It's the same thing for sharks. So we can look at how much they're spending, how much time they're spending, maybe chasing food or actually swimming away from if they don't want to become lunch. So it really helps us, again, understand how they're spending their time. Fitbit for sharks. Pretty amazing technology. Now, as we keep going, we have an acoustic tag. Now this tag can actually go on the outside of the shark or inside. Sharks have these cavities sort of right on their abdomen that don't have any vital organs, and so we can flip the shark over, put it in a sleep-like state, and perform surgery, which is pretty amazing. So make a small incision. This would go in a much larger shark than this one, a big, maybe a 4-meter tiger shark, and it would go inside or have a special attachment for the outside. And it's kind of like a ringtone that a phone has. Each one of these has its own unique ringtone, and then scientists can put out underwater listening stations, the big ears that listen for these specific tags. And when an animal swims by, the underwater computer or listening station records the time of day, the water temperature, that specific animal, and the date. So it's really interesting to see how often a shark is hanging out in that area and who their buddies are. So they've actually developed a way to figure out some sharks have best friends, which is really interesting to see because a lot of people think sharks are sort of these solo animals. Maybe they're not intelligent, they're not social. They're extremely intelligent, and some of them are actually very, very social, meaning they do hang out with their friends. Now, the last tag we're going to show you is pretty much like strapping an iPhone to a shark, right? And you might think that seems like a really bad idea to put an iPhone on a shark, and it would be. It wouldn't last. So what we've done here is this is a computer. These are batteries. This is a waterproof case, and it actually attaches to the dorsal fin, that top fin of the shark. The shark swims away. This one is programmed to last for about 4 years, and this antenna transmits a location. Now, what that means is if you've ever been in the car with somebody and they're getting directions on their phone or figuring out where you are, this has got a GPS in it. It tells us where the shark is. So when that dorsal fin sticks up out of the water, this transmits a signal to satellites, and we get an email from our shark. Pretty amazing. Sharks are emailing. Well, they're not emailing. They're probably not updating their Twitter status, but this tag can tell us where they are. So all of these tags help us understand where sharks go, what habitats they use, where they're spending their time. And the workup that we're going to do in a minute, all of this data is really important because unfortunately, about 25% of sharks and rays are actually threatened with extinction. And if we want to keep that number from going up, and we want to help the ones that are threatened to maybe become a lower status, less threat of becoming endangered, we need to know about them. We need to understand them. And these tags and this research are the tools that allow us to do that. It allows us to put better laws in place to protect them. The Sharklab, the research that's been done here, has helped to establish a shark sanctuary here in the Bahamas. So it's actually illegal to catch and kill sharks here, and also increase protection for different species in the state of Florida, very close by. So this science directly helps conservation, and it's really, really important for that. We have to have data or information specific to these animals to take it to governments, to take it to places that are enacting these laws or organizations to get better protections put in place. So now what you're going to see is a scientific workup. This is the actual data collection process that can be done on a great white, a mako shark, or on every one of the sharks that's caught here in Bimini by the Sharklab. And it's just some specific information. Think of it like going to the doctor and getting a checkup or your physical. It's really like doing that for the shark. Hi guys, I'm going to lead you in your workout today and of this nurse shark. So what we're going to do first, I've got a little trough here. Can you see that? And what it's got a tape measure inside it. I'm just going to fill it up with some water and we're going to place the nurse shark inside here. So the first kind of thing we do when we're working up a shark is we check to see if it has that pit tag. Do you guys remember that little tiny tag that's like a microchip you put in your dogs and cats? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if this shark has one. And if it doesn't have one, we're going to put one in. So Colin's going to lift the shark up for me and pop it in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if the shark has a pit tag by using this pit tag reader. What it does is it just scans the place where the pit tag is inserted to see if there's one there. So I'm just going to do that now. Beep. And you can see it's got a number. So it's had a pit tag already implanted. So, but if the shark didn't have one, what I would do is I would go to put one in here. So I'll show you where that goes. What happens, it's just below the dorsal fin here. And can you see this, where I'm placing just below the dorsal fin? What happens is the tag just gets implanted just underneath the skin very quickly, and that's where I've been scanning for the pit tag. So we know this shark has been caught before, which is very, very exciting. The next measurement I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see how long the shark is. So, as you know, this little trough here, it has a tape measure at the bottom. So Colin is putting the shark with its snout right to the end, and I'm going to take the first measurement. The first measurement is taken just before the tail, the little notch just here. If we pop it down here, I can see that the pre-caudal length, so just the length just before the tail, is 48.4 centimeters. The next one I'm going to take for the shark is the total length, so how big this shark is in total. So this shark is 61.4 centimeters. Now, when Colin was telling me about the anatomy of the sharks, he mentioned that these sharks only have an upper lobe to their tail. If you guys have seen pictures of great whites or anything on sharks, you'll know that some sharks have a bottom bit to their tail. This shark doesn't have one. So another measurement we also take is also where that bottom lobe of the tail meets here.
can't do this for this shark. That's the third measurement we take on length. The final measurement we take is we take something called the girth. So we want to know how fat this shark is. Is it a bit skinny or is it a bit fat? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tape measure, like this one here. I'm going to place it underneath the shark. Just underneath where its pec fins are. I'm going to place it over, pinch the tape measure, and get a measurement for the girth. So this shark is 20.8 centimeters in girth. Pretty cool, right? And these measurements are useful. So we said that sometimes the shark gets recaptured. So anytime we recapture the shark, we re-measure these sharks to see how much they've grown, which is pretty exciting. If you catch the shark kind of a year or 5 years later, you can work out how much that shark has grown every time you catch it, which is pretty useful information. We're just going to pop the shark down for a bit so it can have a little bit of a swim and a breathe. That's pretty cool, right? Now, if this was a bigger shark, some of the tags that Gillian talked about would be put on those sharks so we can measure different data for it. What we also do is we check to see if it's a male or a female. So we said that this guy's a little male, so it had little claspers.
Show that off. Cool. Yeah, so to be able to check whether a shark is a boy or a girl, we are just going to look in between the pelvic fins here. And if you see these two little fleshy projections, those are known as claspers, and that IDs that this shark is a male specimen.
We're now going to put the shark back into the trough. Now it's had a little bit of a swim around. I'm going to take the final couple bits of data that we take. So this is called DNA and isotope. These are necessary data samples for different things. So what we do is we take little scissors, we take a little clip just below on the trailing edge of the shark, and that's your DNA sample. And what's really cool about that is we are able to send these off and get the DNA kind of structure for these sharks. And from this data in other species in the lemon sharks, especially around Bimini, we've been able to build up a family tree, which is really cool. So we've been able to identify there are lots of mothers, brothers and sisters coming to use Bimini, which is really, really cool. The final sample we take is we take the tiny little thinglet from just in the dorsal fin, and that is your stable isotope. So that tells us what the shark has been eating. So we take a tiny little clip from there with the scissors. It's like clipping your fingernails. I'm sure you guys have all had that, or your moms have done that. So it doesn't hurt the shark, and it's a very small little data collection. And that can tell us what the shark's been eating. So it can tell us where maybe it's been eating. Has it eaten recently, which is really, really cool information. That's the basic information we take from the work for the shark.
Cool.
All right, so this is done all over the world, no matter what type of shark scientists are working with. And it's really important information to have, again, to see growth rates, talk about their diet. If you've heard somebody say you are what you eat, that applies to sharks as well, which is really interesting. And it helps us figure out sort of where in the food chain they fit, because not every shark is an apex predator. They're not all in the top of the food chain. So by knowing what they eat, kind of what's their favorite restaurant, where are they hanging out, coral reefs, seagrass beds, understanding the habitats that they're using, because protecting sharks also means protecting the habitats that they live in. Coral reefs here in Bimini, we have a lot of mangroves, and they're really important nursery areas for baby animals, including baby lemon sharks, baby nurse sharks, baby conch and lobster. So very, very important areas for the environment, which impact and kind of affect all the other ecosystems around. So these different tags that we use, if we catch the shark again, the basic fit tags standing there, or the more kind of exciting tags have a bit more technology that allow us information, or providing us information even if we never see the shark again. So as technology changes, there's other types of tags as well that are really helping us get a glimpse into the life of these animals, again, so we can put better laws in place to protect them, because many of them are threatened with extinction. Great, so now we're going to go to each class. I think what we'll do is we'll start out with 2 questions. So when we call your class, if you want to ask your question, and then mute your microphone. We'll answer, and then we'll do a second question, and we'll go right through and make sure we get everybody. So we're going to start out with Mrs. Martin's class.
Hi.
Hello.
Come over. Ask your question real loud.
How many sharks do you research in a year?
Yeah, so based on our numbers after last year's assessment of an entire annual yield of research specimens, we had over 500 individual sharks of about 9 different species that we had caught and taken that workup information of and tagged so that we can know a lot more about them, their usage of Bimini, what they're doing here, how they're utilizing the food chain, but about 500 plus sharks that we caught in 2017.
Great question. You guys have one more?
Okay, Hunter.
What was the first shark you saw?
Nurse shark was the first shark that I ever saw, and I was just about your age. I was snorkeling in Florida when I was 8, and I got to see a nurse shark, and they're still one of my favorites. They're amazing. A lot of people like great whites because they have a big mouth and they're really big, but nurse sharks are really, really an incredible animal. So that was the first shark I ever saw and got to swim with, and they're still one of my favorites.
The first shark I ever saw was I was on holiday in the Caribbean and I saw a Caribbean reef shark, and that was the first shark I ever saw. And the first time I saw it, I was like, this is a very big shark. But we were snorkeling for a while and it was very, very cool, and it got me really interested in sharks, and I've been in love with them ever since.
So my first shark species would also be a Caribbean reef shark. I was with my family. It was spring break when I was around you guys' age in just off of Hopetown in Abaco, Bahamas, and it was about a 5-foot Caribbean reef shark, and it changed my life entirely. Yeah.
Great questions. All right, so we're going to go to Mrs. Wisniewski's class. Do you have some questions for us?
How common is it for a shark to lose a tag?
It really depends. So they'll actually, if they're smaller sharks, as they grow, some of the tags will migrate out. Something like the pit tag is also going to move or migrate through the body. The pit tags now last about 15 to 20 years. That larger tag, this one we mentioned earlier, the spot tag, this will actually migrate out of the fin as well. So oftentimes they do lose them. It just really depends on the type of tag and the size of the animal. If you put a pit tag or a KC tag and a full-grown adult, it's not necessarily going to move as much, so it's probably going to keep it. But they do get caught on things. Sometimes they do get ripped out. So it does happen. These tags do come off. You just hope that for the duration of your study or the life of those batteries on that tag, we hope that the tag actually stays on the animal. But they do come off. That does happen. So but that's part of the research and part of why you try and put more of them out, so you have a larger study size or sample size, more animals to really kind of put together to get a big picture of what is happening with that type of shark. Great question. Do you guys have another one?
What are we doing every day that affects sharks?
We can go through some of that. So that is, one, an excellent question, and two, it becomes very difficult because there are a lot of influences that humans can kind of impact a shark with. A couple of ones that we see fairly regularly on the island on Bimini is, pardon me, the development of an island. So as we see, it's a popular sunny beachside area, but a lot of people notice that, and there's the buildup of different structures and residential areas that can remove habitat or alter a chemical balance within an ecosystem, which is a sizable one. And another one that's super prominent here is, or around globally more so, would be shark fishing, which can, really exact a pretty big toll on shark populations on more of a global scale. But as Jillian said, the Bahamas were very fortunate. This is a shark fishing free area since 2003, so it's not as prominent an issue, but on a global scale, the fisheries of shark and shark products become super detrimental to their populations and their success.
Another one I'd say is sharks like to eat certain things. So, a shark might have a favorite fish, it might have a favorite prey item like a turtle or something like that. So a lot of the time sharks migrate around different places or stay in certain places due to a food source. So whether that's a specific fish, like I said, or a turtle. So that also affects sharks. So if there's more sea turtles in some area, maybe there are more sharks going in there. And that's a lot of ongoing research that's happening right now. So, and vice versa, if there is a place that there were previously lots of these favorite prey items for these sharks, then the shark might not go there anymore because its food source is lost. That's definitely one factor that influences movement, especially of sharks. And a lot of scientists at the moment are researching different sharks and where they are moving and whether or not it's for certain prey or whether or not they're moving away from it.
And one of the things too that we're all doing that affects the oceans is plastic, and you probably talked about that. Our use of single-use plastic bags, water bottles. It has to go somewhere, and oftentimes you might, it just goes in the trash and you forget about it. We see it here on the island because all of our trash gets burned. There's no real recycling, which is a problem. So just being conscious of the products you're using and making sure if you can choose something that's not plastic or if you have to use plastic, make sure you recycle it. But those canvas grocery bags that people take or your refillable water bottles, it might not seem like a big deal, but it's a really simple act that if we all do it, it actually makes an impact. It means less plastic is being used, and it means that less plastic is ending up in the oceans where animals are digesting it, getting caught up in it, tangled, injured, things like that. So no matter where you live, your use of plastic actually can impact the oceans, even if you're not living right near the beach. So using less plastic and being aware of that is a really big thing that's very easy to do that actually really helps. Great questions. All right, so we're going to go to Mrs. Sampson's.
Question 1.
How do you calculate the age of a shark?
Sure, I can go with that. So when we undergo a workup, based on some of the length measurements of the shark, it helps us gauge a sense of how old that particular shark is. Also, for a nurse shark, let's say, if the shark was notably smaller and when they're in their very first year or so of life, they actually have pigmentation or little black spots that are on both their dorsal, so their top, and ventral or their bottom sides. We actually call them, we call these little sharks at that stage cookies because it looks like they have little chocolate chips on them. That helps us indicate. And something really neat that we look at with our little lemon sharks is their umbilical scar or their belly button that actually rests just kind of behind their jawline. And when they're young of the year, new to the world, learning all their stuff from their best friends, that umbilical scar is actually going to be open, exposed. And as we recapture these sharks, it's going to close naturally. And that helps us further gauge a sense of that shark's healing capability, which is just a side note of another really cool usage of that umbilical area here. But if it's open, we know that that shark is a young of the year, a brand new addition to Bimini, a brand new addition to the mangroves, and we hope that it learns a lot from its sharky friends.
You guys have one more?
Are there animals that prey on sharks? Are there animals that prey on sharks?
Absolutely. So sometimes people say sharks are at the top of the food chain. And yes, at some points in their life, they do reach that. But think about when a baby nurse shark is born, it's about 11 inches or 28 centimeters. It's really small. So it's definitely not at the top of the food chain. Things like big grouper, barracuda, other sharks will prey on them. And also things like orcas. Killer whales have been known to target tiger sharks, thresher sharks, and even great whites. So there are absolutely things that do hunt sharks. They're not always on the top of the food chain, but really the biggest predator and problem for sharks in the world today is humans. Our actions from overfishing, taking too many animals out of the ocean, plastics, pollution, things like that. So we're actually the biggest problem for these animals. Great question. All right, so we're going to go on to our big group that's led by Mrs. Hughes' class. Do you guys have, we'll actually let you guys do 3 questions because we have a really big group.
How many different kinds of sharks are there?
I don't have an approximation.
So it's just over 500 different kinds of sharks. And the really exciting thing is every year new species are being discovered. So last year, I don't know if they've actually published it. So scientists published papers or information about their findings that there was a new species of bonnethead. A lot of times the new species are deep sea animals. So hundreds and thousands of feet in the ocean and kind of these big nets that come up from fishermen. And a new shark might be in there. A scientist gets to look at that and they figure out and they compare it to other species. And so every year there are new species being discovered, which is really exciting, which means we all have the opportunity to learn something new about sharks every single year. There's about just over 500 currently. Give another one.
We've heard a lot of different numbers of kinds of sharks.
Can you say that again? Can you say that one again?
What was the biggest kind of shark since the dinosaurs were alive?
What's the biggest shark?
Yeah.
All right, so the largest shark species that we have on Earth is the whale shark. It can get to about 35, 40 feet. It's massive. But what's really interesting about these creatures is even though they're so big, they eat among the smallest creatures within the water column. So they're actually planktonic feeders. They feed on little microorganisms, and they filter feed them through their gills. So they kind of cruise near the surface or round about that area with their mouths kind of gaping wide open and bring in a super huge amount of water so that they can maximize the amount of prey that's coming in and nourishing them.
But you're probably, I think if you're asking about the biggest shark, that's the biggest shark we have that exists now. Megalodon is the largest shark we know has ever existed, but it's extinct. I know there might have been shows and things like that, and people say it's still swimming around. It's been extinct for nearly 3 million years, but it was the largest shark we currently know has ever existed. We found fossilized teeth, so its teeth are about the size of my hand. Pretty incredible. So fossils have allowed us to put sort of this puzzle together to figure out what this animal looks like, what it fed on, where it hung out, but they've been extinct for quite a long time. You guys have one more question?
I think we just had 2 for today, but thank you so much.
Okay. All right, and then we'll finish with Mrs. Willis's class.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, mine had to go to another class, so they're not with us right now. I'm sorry,
That's all right. All right.
but they loved your presentation.
Oh, well, thank you.
You so
And
much.
Yeah, if they do have questions, they can send them to us after.
Miss Overberg's class has questions if you have a moment.
Absolutely.
Why are the tiger sharks so aggressive?
Which kind of shark?
Be louder. Why are the tiger sharks so aggressive?
They're not necessarily. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times people hear really negative or bad things about sharks, that they're monsters, they're man-eaters, they swim around looking for people. Sharks are not man-eaters. They're not monsters. Bites do happen. It's very rare. So tiger sharks, when you dive with them, are actually not aggressive. They're very cautious. We have one here in Bimini now that started to show up to the dive site, and she doesn't come right in, and she didn't start. She kind of hangs on the edge, takes it all in, and then they'll come in as they get a bit more confident. But I think just oftentimes, if you've seen videos of sharks feeding on things, yeah, they're trying to go after the food and catch it before it can get away. Imagine if every day you had to chase your lunch around and fight it and wrestle it to try and eat it. All right, you kind of have to be aggressive as well. So that word gets used a lot, but in reality, when animals are feeding, they're trying to survive. Their teeth are what they have. They don't have hands or McDonald's to go to, right? So it's a word that's used a lot. And yes, they're aggressive when they're going for their food, but not necessarily just swimming around, eating everything, attacking everything. But unfortunately for sharks, that's what we see on TV and on the internet. And you guys all have an amazing opportunity to be ambassadors for these animals, to share really cool facts and information and not be afraid of them, but actually want to help them, because they're really important to keeping our oceans healthy and clean, which impacts all of us, even if you don't live near the ocean. So it's a word that is used, but in reality, it's oftentimes it's just these animals are trying to survive. They're trying to. Question. You guys have another one?
What is the shark that you showed us eat?
Sorry, can you say that again?
What is the shark that you showed us eat?
Ooh, so what is that little nurse? Do you want to, Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
you can deal this.
So
Yeah.
you know how Colin talked about how it had plates in its mouth, so it grinds down on stuff? That gives an indication about what little nurse sharks eat. They like stuff called crustaceans. So here in the Bahamas, we have stuff like conch, we have crabs and stuff like that. So they use those plates to crash down on the shells. And you know how you said that they have an ability to suction feed, to vacuum in their prey? What they can actually do is they can suck out the conch from its shell. That's how strong that suction feeding is. Pretty cool, right?
Right. Well, those were amazing questions, and we want to thank all of our classes that joined us today. For more information about the Shark Lab, you can go to www.biminisharklab.com, find out how you can support the research. Classes can actually adopt a shark, so you can check that out. Or if you're going to visit Bimini, come actually visit the station. And you can check out www.sharksforkids.com for more materials, curriculum, ways to dive even deeper into the world of sharks. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you guys so
Have a great
much.
day.